Good evening, everyone. My name is Brenton McGee, and welcome to another Friends Home in Kennett Meet the Musician lecture series, sponsored by Friends Home in Kennett Square, Pennsylvania. We have a wonderful guest musician here today who is a fabulous music composer and friend, and he lives in Lincoln, Nebraska, and his name is David Von Kampen. I'm going to read his bio, and I'm going to particularly be talking about one of his pieces of music that my church choir performed in Millersville, Pennsylvania. Here is a little bit of his bio. David Von Kampen is a composer based in Lincoln, Nebraska. David's creative work spans a wide variety of genres and styles, including jazz, choral music, hymnody and liturgy, solo voice, chamber music, and musical theater. He holds a Doctor of Musical Arts degree from the University of Kansas and a master's and bachelor's degree from the University of Nebraska. He has studied composition with James Barnes, Dan Gailey, Forrest Pierce, Eric Richards, and Randall Snyder. David is a 6-time Downbeat Award winner in graduate level jazz writing categories, a 3-time winner of the Vancouver Chamber Choir Young Composers Competition, and was named the MTNA Distinguished Composer of the Year for his song cycle Under the Silver and Home Again. He has been among 10 winners of the ORTUS International New Music Competition, the recipient of an ASCAP Young Jazz Composer Award, and winner of the San Francisco Choral Arts New Voices Project, winner of the National Band Association's Young Jazz Composer Competition, and received honorable mention in the New York Youth Symphony First Music Commissions, Pudding and the Gumble. David's original musical with playwright Becky Boson was one of the 7 finalists for the Richard Rogers Award. David has over 60 choral and instrumental compositions and arrangements published with Walton Music, G. Shermer, Hal Leonard, just to name a couple of them. His music has been performed by the KHORIKOS Vocal Ensemble, the LA Choral Lab, KC Vitas Chamber Choir, the Taiwan Youth Festival Choir, the San Francisco Choral Arts, and just so many. It's just unbelievable. A lot of great choirs there. David is also currently a professor of music theory and literature at the University of Nebraska, where he directs the jazz orchestra and jazz singers. He also teaches applied composition at Concordia University in Nebraska, and serves as music coordinator for sanctuary worship at Christian Lutheran Church in Lincoln. David is a member of the ASCAP, the Jazz Education Network, and the American Choral Directors Association. He is active as a conductor and a pianist and a clinician for vocal and instrumental ensembles. He lives in Lincoln with his wife, Molly, and his 2 daughters. David, I got to know pretty recently, this year, actually, and I was looking for choir music for my church choir to sing. One of the pieces in Glory Everlasting came about as I was looking for planning a concert of total praise of God, and was very much in all of David's music. And really this piece in Glory Everlasting, which is today's lecture will be about, really inspired me, and it's really a privilege to have him speak, not only for our residents here at Friends Home, but we invited him to give a informal session with some of the choir members who sang that work. So tonight, we're going to give an interview for David about each of the 4 movements, and then we will play our version, and there's multiple versions, our version of the In Glory Everlasting, and then we're going to open it up to questions from the residents and myself. So let's begin. Let's welcome David again. Thank you. So David, obviously this is mainly, we'll talk 2 questions. First, talk about your background, how you got into music, why composing music, and why music in general.
Sure. Well, are you hearing me okay now? Great.
Yes,
okay.
We hear you fine.
All right, great. That echo is gone now, so that's perfect. All right, so I started piano lessons probably age 7 or so. We lived in the Detroit area, and there's a old piano in our house, and I was always messing around with it, trying to figure out songs. I was really excited as a kid about kind of exploring the piano and learning how to play by ear. Started piano lessons in second grade and went all the way up through college. I was never really serious as a performer. I never really wanted to practice. I wasn't really interested in the music I was supposed to be learning for my piano lessons. I sort of did it reluctantly because I wanted to be around the instrument, and I liked music more than I liked, I think, being a pianist. But mostly I was excited about playing by ear and I don't know, I guess as I would have thought of it then, sort of jamming, playing blues and rock music as I sort of improperly understood them at the time. And just like learning how to play songs that I knew when I heard something I liked, I had a really strong desire to sit at the piano and kind of figure out how to play that music. And so sort of without really realizing it, I spent many hours over many years kind of developing my ear and learning how to play by ear and learning how to sort of create the sounds I wanted to hear from seeing it out laid in front of you visually at the piano, not necessarily with sheet music, but just sort of figuring out how the piano works and how to create chords that sound cool. And so that kind of gradually developed into more serious composing as I moved through grade school and high school. And when I got to college, I realized you could major in composition, and that seemed like something I was capable of doing and something I wanted to get better at. I don't know if I really thought at that time about having a career as a composer, but I knew that I felt pretty confident that I could like be successful to get a college degree in that subject. So majored in composition at Nebraska, had a fantastic time in undergrad, kind of building up a network of performers, people who would play and sing music I was composing. That was really thrilling for me to put music in front of other musicians and to have those people also sort of be your friends and just kind of develop this community of performers and find that people enjoy what you write and they like playing it and they like listening to it. That's kind of intoxicating, I think, for a composer, and that definitely drove me forward to kind of keep pursuing it. I started getting some choir pieces published around then and had some success with my first sort of efforts in the jazz idiom, writing for a big band. And then when I finished my undergrad, a new composition professor had just come in at UNL, and I had only had 1 year with him after 3 years with the old guy. And I figured, well, I've got all these friends and performers here that I like working with and a new composition teacher who I'm just kind of feeling like I'm getting started with. So I stayed there, which is here. That's where I am now in Lincoln. And did my master's there as well. And then when I finished my master's, I figured probably shouldn't have all 3 degrees from the same place. So made the short trek south to Lawrence, Kansas, and did my doctorate there. That's when I started to get some experience teaching music theory and directing the jazz singers at KU. Really just a continuation, though, of all the same stuff I was excited about at Nebraska. And then before I even finished my doctorate in Lawrence, my wife got a job back up here as the director of the lab school where the University Child Development Lab is here in Lincoln. So we moved back up and I finished my doctorate, and then I started picking up classes to teach at back at UNL, where I had my first 2 degrees from. And it just felt really good and made a lot of sense. We like being here, and I've found lots of exciting opportunities to compose since then. So that's kind of the whole story.
Wonderful. Thank you. They really like that. So
it's a thrilling tale.
Well, both groups really like you. We really like you in Pennsylvania.
I appreciate that.
About this, well, thank you. I don't know if you worked with anybody else in Pennsylvania. Do you work with any of the college choirs or church choirs in Pennsylvania, or not really?
I have enough church music, especially published, that I'm sure some churches in your state have done something of mine. But off the top of my head, I can't think of any person from Pennsylvania who I've actually like made contact with. And I certainly haven't been there to work with any groups or anything like that. So hopefully that's in the future. You're on my list.
Yeah, you're on my list. Sure. Absolutely. So let's get back to the In Glory Everlasting. Can you talk to me what it was commissioned, why the piece of music, what got you to write a Te Deum Laudamus? What is a Te Deum Laudamus? Just talk about the piece in general.
Sure. when I was at UNL, I was in a graduate conducting class, and one of the other students in that class was getting his DMA in choral conducting. I was just there for fun. I just wanted to learn how to conduct, but he was actually like learning to be a choral conductor. And we were not great friends, but friendly. We were acquaintances, and he went off, graduated, and got a job directing, I think, a number of groups. I think a church group and a community group. But his name is Eric Harstead, and his group in the Twin Cities area is the oh gosh, I forget the name of the group. They're on the score. The Minnesota Valley Chorale in Mankato, I guess, not Minneapolis. But he called me back in 2017 or 2018 and said, we're looking for kind of a large-ish, medium-sized work for choir and string quartet and piano. And I kind of suggested the Te Deum. They were looking for a sacred text. I suggested the Te Deum. I told your group last week this text comes from a hymnal that I grew up with, Lutheran worship from 1982, and they set this exact text in the front of the hymnal as hymn 8 in like a chant style, and it's just like a really repetitive melody and some kind of evocative harmonic changes with the text, but it's very kind of specific, and it's, I wouldn't call it like a composition. It's really like a liturgical chant. And I've always just really liked the text. I think it's sprawling and evocative and mysterious, and great for a church choir, and the community choir could do it too. And so, yeah, just wanted to create like a really kind of lush, warm, rich, deep setting of that text with lots of kind of thick, beautiful chords, and try and bring that text to life as much as possible over the 4 movements.
Wonderful, wonderful. Let's go through the 4 movements, and obviously this is a 4-movement piece, so we're going to go through this piece of music. Talk about the first movement. We praise you, O God. What was your idea on setting that text, and why you set the music the way you did for We Praise You, O God?
Sure. Well, it starts off with this kind of undulating back and forth piano figure, and the strings are just kind of sustaining and filling in the texture. I use the strings that way a lot, I think, where the piano is kind of doing a lot of the heavy lifting of the harmony and the kind of the forwardness of the texture, and then the strings kind of fill in the harmonic space around that, and often the strings are kind of supporting what the choir is doing. This starts off with the altos and tenors in unison, kind of right around the middle of the staff. That's a texture I really enjoy, kind of utilizing the unison between the male and female voices in the place where they meet each other. And I think I didn't want this to start off with a big kind of explosion of sound. I think it starts, it kind of eases in, and then it just kind of gradually picks up, not steam, not necessarily volume, although there's kind of a little bit of bigger stuff that happens a little bit later on, but really just kind of keeping it very melodic and steady, and trying to write music that would let the text kind of shine through.
Wonderful, wonderful. Let's take a listen to that.
We
Good. So you can hear me. Great. So that was the first yes step. There we go. Dave, you can hear me, right?
Sure can.
Good. All right. So that was the first movement. I want to talk about the second movement. Since it's a talk, I wanted to stop it at the C's, and we'll continue it along. So, Glorious Company of the Apostles. Can you talk to me about that movement?
Yeah, the beginning and end of this movement kind of revert back to the vibe of the way I originally learned the text from the kind of the chant version from the hymnal. It doesn't really sound anything like that version, but I sort of liked the idea of this sort of static harmony in the choir in 3-part chords, just kind of declaiming the text at the beginning and end of this movement. And then that sort of bookends a much more flowing section where you've got these triplets in the piano part. So the beat is moving along pretty fast, and then underneath that, or along with that, the right hand of the piano is going ya da 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 da. So we get these fast triplets kind of driving everything forward, and much more kind of forward pushing fluid melodies here. Lots of 2-part writing between the women and the men, and then a couple moments where it all comes together in kind of big punchy block chords. Some of the really punchiest moments of the whole text are in this movement. The Father of an infinite majesty, your adorable, true and only Son. Really wanted to kind of pick up the intensity in those moments, and then it comes back down when it talks about the Holy Spirit, the Comforter.
Wonderful. Let's take a listen to it. They're clapping.
Me too.
Good. Yeah, it went pretty good. So the third movement. Now this is obviously really I find the more gospel message, the hardcore text. So like I feel like you express the text really good on this one. So talk to me about your process in learning the third movement.
Sure. Well, following kind of the symphony model, really, you've got like kind of a development-oriented first movement with lots of thematic material. And then the second movement kind of kicks things along. Maybe it has more of a dance flavor. And then usually the third movement is kind of the slow one. And that's kind of the model I was following here. Just kind of bringing everything down. And this section of the text seemed to fit well with that. When you took upon yourself to deliver man, you humbled yourself to be born of a virgin. I thought that text worked very well with kind of like lower energy music and something that had kind of a steady pulsing quality, but was kind of lower in terms of texture and energy. So this has more kind of subtle harmonic twists and turns, I think. I think I would describe this as a little bit darker overall. When you had overcome the sharpness of death and just kind of some surprising chords and surprising key areas. The instruments drop out for a while and it's just the voices, and then everything kind of comes back in, and then there's another little interlude in the instruments at the end of this movement that leads you back to D major for the closing.
All right, let's take a listen. Okay. And the fourth movement, this is really the peak. I'm sorry. Really, the fourth movement is the peak of the piece. So in glory everlasting, we therefore pray you, but in glory everlasting is the end of the word. So talk to me about the fourth movement.
Yeah, the title of the whole piece comes from the very end of the text, which ends this last movement, obviously. Really, I think very straightforward, just D major. There are not a lot of harmonic twists and turns here, just kind of sets up in D major and drives it forward. Really tried to put the most energy into this, really ended on a high note, literally, and just kind of drive it home. Yeah.
All right, here's the fourth movement of In Glory Everlasting. Thank you. Let's clap for him on that piece. Fabulous piece of music. Fabulous. I want to just say one last question before we open up to our audience and our residents here at Friends Home. For anybody who would possibly consider this piece, could you talk about what's your hope for this piece, or anybody interested, where could they find the music? What's your hope in the next 5, 10, or maybe when we're both gone 200 years from now, people this piece? What do you hope for future choirs, both church chorales or college choirs, who might consider performing this piece with their choir?
Yeah, I guess I don't think too hard about like what my specific hopes are beyond just that people would sing the piece. If a director finds it and they like it and they program it like you did, that makes me really happy. That's what I wrote it for, is to be sung and to be listened to. And I hope that keeps happening. I've written a lot of pieces where that doesn't happen. It gets one or two performances and then everyone kind of forgets about it. I think that's part of being a composer. And so every time I finish a piece, I sort of accept that that's a possibility. But my hope for everything I write, especially for choirs, is that it will get looked at by a lot of directors and sung a lot and listened to a lot and create moments of musical collaboration and beauty. I think that's what every composer hopes for.
Wonderful. Let's give David Van Kampen a hand for his In Glory Everlasting. And we were honored to perform it, David. It went really, I think the fourth movement was probably the best of the four. It really came together.
Sure.
We worked on the contrapunction and it went, I think so that's the first time you ever heard it. And our version of it. And we hope that we pleased you. I know the choir really enjoyed singing it. I know the residents who went. I mean, just a lot of compliments from the youth and the kids. I had a 4-year-old kid come up to me and was amazed.
That's great.
A 90-some-year-old person was amazed. So everybody really made the service, and the choir really enjoyed it. I enjoyed conducting it, and it was really quite an honor. So thank you, David.
That's so nice to hear. Thank you.
Thank you, David. So anybody have any questions for David? No questions. All right. So do you have, let's go.
It was fantastic.
This is
David.
say who you are.
My name is Randall Snyder. I'm from Italy.
Oh, great.
And I love the music and the singing.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Beautiful. Bravissimo. Bravo.
Thank you.
Do you have any comments or questions?
I enjoyed it immensely. My name is Donna Leo, and I am from Pennsylvania. And I love music, and you certainly did a wonderful job.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Ahead.
Hello. I think you did a wonderful job, and you do it every time. I would listen. We got a smile.
Go ahead. Say something. There's the composer there. Yeah.
Okay.
Did he do a good job?
Yes.
Just tell him you did a good job.
Okay.
Good job. All right. Wonderful.
Hi, my name is Carol, and I was proud to be one of the first people to hear this played.
Yay.
I did go up to the church. It was wonderful.
Thank you.
Hi, David. I'm Marion. It was wonderful. I just enjoy music. It's nice to hear such a great choir led by a good conductor.
And a good composer. All right. And here, go ahead.
Hi, David. My name is Peter. What I heard was echoes of, especially in the third movement. I heard echoes of woodwind quartet.
Oh.
Primarily big oboe and bassoon types of sounds. Do you do any kind of music with experimenting? I know that oboe is not considered a jazz instrument, but there have been quite a few jazz oboists around who have done quite well. So,
thank you. I don't know. I haven't had a lot of opportunity to write for woodwinds, honestly. Occasionally I'll write for orchestra if there's a specific project where I'm asked to do that. But Most of my kind of day-to-day composing is either choral music or vocal jazz or instrumental jazz. So I really haven't spent a lot of time writing for oboe. But that's interesting that you heard that in the third movement. I think oboe is a very lyrical instrument, and when we hear it like in orchestral works, often it's playing very like plaintive kind of melodies, and I think that really fits in what I was trying to do with the third movement here. So it's a really interesting comment. I appreciate that you listened for that.
Thank you.
Good. Any other comments for David? Questions? Any questions? Or do I just have a couple of them? Okay, they always want me to answer. All right. Good. So I did have a couple musical questions, and we're doing okay on time. So we'll try to wrap this up really soon, so that way you can do what you've got to do. Great. So why the In Glory Everlasting? I know that had to have a meaning writing that part. So what was the process of writing it contrapuntal? Obviously, when I heard it and I was teaching it really sounds like a heavenly choir, obviously. So maybe it's, instead of it just being a homophonic section at the beginning, to make them to be numbered with your saints. You know, so what led to that, and how did you figure out how to make the ending work?
Oh, yeah, well, that's a good question. Well, it was a very conscious choice on the text to make them to be numbered with your saints, to move away from the homophonic rhythms with everyone singing the same thing at the same time, to sort of the overlapping lines. Really, I mean, just kind of the way it sounds, to kind of depict a multitude of voices and kind of almost a chaotic kind of overlapping of singing of those words, as you know, thinking about the number of saints and really like trying to depict kind of a larger quantity of people, which it can go both ways, because obviously when you get everyone singing the same thing all together, that's also a very big sound, and we have that also at the end. But I like the idea of, numbered with your saints. We're counting, we're seeing sort of the accumulation. That's kind of the feeling I was going for there. So I think you picked up on exactly the way I was thinking about it. And just also maybe having sort of a polyphonic section there and imitative entrances and overlapping lines maybe kind of sets the stage for the big ending when it goes to those enormous chords at the end. Those might have a little more impact because we've just come out of a section where the texture was something different.
Yeah, and also in the fourth movement, you do the 3/4 loss, and then you have mezzo piano with a big crescendo.
Yeah.
And oftentimes when you, I mean, I think of Mahler's the Symphony of 1,000. It's loud throughout everything, or often when you hear loud, it's always loud. But you do something different. You actually pull back in volume and you crescendo that, which I think makes the piece even more effective. So why write it like that? Why not just write it loud instead of down? Why write it like that?
I wish I could remember my exact thought process as I was finishing this movement. What I do remember is the idea of just kind of ending on D major and kind of pounding it out for a few bars. I went back and forth on whether or not that was a good idea. And I remember thinking for a while that it was a little too crude, like it wasn't clever enough. Like maybe I should go like different chords and have like a series of like unrelated chords that would create sort of like surprising harmonies in those last few bars. And I kind of just settled on like, I think at the end of all these four movements, you want a big finish. You want it to feel super satisfying. I think that I was thinking it would be kind of the most satisfying and almost like cathartic for the choir and the strings and the piano to all just be like sitting on D major. And I guess if I had to guess what I was thinking, I probably, once I decided to stay on D major, I figured, okay, I don't want it to just be loud D major for 4 bars and nothing else. We're going to hit everlasting and then bring it back and then grow. I think those last 3 bars are almost kind of like a notated out version of like a forte piano. Like if you come up to a note and it's like, bah, often that is just kind of shown as a whole note with the indication of forte piano. Hit it loud and then back way down and then grow. That's kind of all we're doing over those last 3 bars. And I just kind of notated it out in time to kind of increase the chance that the group will really kind of enjoy those moments and not get through it too quickly.
Wonderful. So final question is, where can people who's watching this video get in contact with you? How did they contact you for music, to find out more information? What is the best way to contact you to find out information about your music, what you're doing? You know,
absolutely. I have a website, which is just my name, davidvonkampen.com. And you can listen to recordings and look at videos and read some things. I've got a blog where I sometimes write, and there's a contact page on the website. So if anyone wants to shoot me an email, that is the best way to do it. And I like hearing from people. So yeah, if anyone is watching this would like to get in touch to ask about music or just say hi, that's the way to do it. I'd love to hear from you.
And really, folks, contact Dave Von Kampen if you're interested in Glory Everlasting. I highly recommend it for your church choir, college choir, chorale. It's really great music. And I think his music's going to get more popular as people get more familiar with him. And just really contact David, see what he's doing. I encourage you to go on his website. So, but David, thank you for being our guest, not only for Friends Home in Kennett, but for my church at Millersville Community Church. It was a joint event. Both of my jobs came together to hear your music. And we so appreciate your warm kindness for joining us. And thank you. Let's give him one last hand.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. And until next time, thank